Valentine's Day is a day that represents love, unity, intimacy, and passion. Some people believe that it is just a day that is heavily influenced by capitalism and a way for businesses to make money. A commercial celebration, if you will. But businesses are not the only ones who see Valentine's Day as an opportunity to make money. In February 2002, two brothers did too. And by the end of that night, a man would be dead. Returning to this episode is Commissioner Niels Becker, who first appeared in episode 2 to reflect on the capture of Thomas Florin and the investigative work behind that case. Known as one of Namibia's most feared and respected criminal investigators, he joins us again to revisit this case and help shed light on what took place. Welcome back to Desert Crime.
This podcast discusses real crimes and may include images and descriptions of violence and sensitive content. Viewer and listener discretion is advised.
Gero Schwam was 59 years old, a businessman, a husband, a man known for structure and routine. He lived in Klein Windhoek, a quiet neighborhood where life moved predictably, like many business owners at the time. He kept large amounts of cash at home. It was practical. It was efficient. But information like that does not always remain private. And when criminals know where money is kept, the victim is rarely chosen by chance.
So the suspects in this matter were two brothers, Ian and Chris Jones. Ian was the older brother, Chris Jones was the younger brother. So they at some stage were invited to a party at that residence where a girl that was sort of house sitting had a party at the house, and these two happened to go to that party, which is where they sort of staked out the residence and saw that there was a safe and that this was not a poor man.
Every single corner of the house was meticulously memorized. Ian had learned something important. There was cash inside the Schwam home. Ian told his brother about his discovery, and that was when they made a decision. They would wait, they would confront him, and they would take everything. On the evening of February 14, 2002, Gero Schwam returned home. It was an ordinary moment, a normal routine that was always practiced. Drive into the driveway, get out of the car, and lock it. Everything was going according to his routine until he was confronted at gunpoint. Inside the house, the safe was opened. More than 880,000 Namibian dollars was taken. At that point, the crime could have ended, but it didn't.
At some stage they decided to break into the house, and then they encountered Mr. Schwam and subsequently kidnapped him, got him to open up the safe, stole a firearm as well as money.
Instead of leaving, the brothers forced Schwam into his vehicle. They drove him out of Windhoek, past the lights, past the familiar streets, into the open area near Braakwater. By now, the robbery was already complete. What happened next was no longer about money. It was about control, or loss of control.
And then they subsequently drove around with him for probably a day or two. The scene was discovered, I think, by Mr. Schwam's wife, estranged wife at that stage. And he was not at home, but we could see that there were things missing. And this is where the case started. So at that point in time, in one of the bathrooms, I remember there was a black t-shirt on the floor, and which was identified as not being his clothing. And this is where, where detectives get separated from other people due to their skills. At that point in time, I had a person working with me on a team, because remember, these investigations are not singular persons that does it. This is a team. So I was at the serious crime unit, commander there in Windhoek, and under me was a detective, a good friend of mine, a Damara-speaking guy called Michael Boyson. Michael Boyson was like my left hand. And then what he did is he picked up this t-shirt and he smelled it. At the time you would think that this guy is crazy, what is he doing? But he had a plan, because when he smelled it, he immediately told me, these suspects are not black people. I said, okay, Michael, I took it with a pinch of salt. Then I started looking at this t-shirt, and in the, like with all t-shirts, in the back on the label you could see there was a marking of a room number. And I don't know if some of you were in a hostel, you know that you usually have to mark your clothing, otherwise it gets stolen on wash day. So now the race began. Now we didn't find Mr. Sham's body yet, he was still missing. So now the race began to look for where did this t-shirt, because we were now sure this must be the suspect's clothing, where did this originate from? And then we started the footwork, going to hostels. At some stage I visited the youth center, the old youth center. I think there's now an old age home there, it's near the police station. And they had such a room number like that. So I then traced the room, the person who was staying in the room, and it was a paramedic that was working in Windhoek. And after speaking to him, he identified the t-shirt. He said, no, that is his t-shirt, he remembers it. And how it went missing is that Ian Jones at some stage came into his room, and then this t-shirt went missing. So now we started connecting the dots and say, okay, we have a potential suspect here by the name of Ian Jones. So I'm not sure if that it was, but the vehicle, we first found the vehicle back. The Audi was spotted by a police officer in Olympia, parked in front of, near the shopping center, the Woemanebroek there, in front of a butchery there, deserted. You could see that this guy at some stage tried to get out of the boot. There were scratches inside of the boot, probably made with a tire lever or something. But he was not in the vehicle. So we found the vehicle, haven't found Mr. Sham's body yet. Then, once again, the sequence I can't remember exactly, but at some stage the body was found. We found the body at Brakwater.
In the Brakwater area, the vehicle stopped. Gerald Shwam was shot twice in the head. The court would later describe his death as cruel, because before the shots were fired, there was time to realize what was happening, time to understand that there was no way back, as well as the fact that Gero did not resist and complied willingly. He did not protest, he did as instructed, and yet he was killed even after they got everything they needed. After the murder, the brothers separated. Ian Jones fled Namibia and crossed into South Africa without a valid passport, and along the way a firearm and a briefcase were handed to a relative. The firearm was later thrown into the Orange River.
So then we started unfolding his route. We managed to trace through informants, we managed to get information that Ian Jones was helped over the border by some people down in the south near the Orange River, and that he went over the border in a truck We traced these people. I remember one of them was a Bible carrying gentleman. Something was dumped in the Orange River, and we asked him to go into the river and try to recover it, and he went into the water holding his Bible, which was actually very funny, but any event. So we got the information that he now passed over to South Africa. And then we started making inquiries. At the same time, I started getting information that this guy might be in Cape Town, in Sea Point. And we then established that he visited Springbok on his way down. Or not on his way down, he went down and then he came back to Springbok, if I remember correctly, and then he purchased a BMW M3, very fast car, red BMW, in Springbok from a car dealer, paid for it, so we could see he had a lot of money, and then went down to Cape Town with this vehicle. So we got in that time. We were really running behind these things. We didn't wait for nobody. So we got into a car. We made the arrangements. We said we're going down to South Africa. We're going to assist with this. So we drove down to South Africa. And on arrival in South Africa, early that morning, we met members of the South African police, of the murder and robbery squad, and we then hit this flat in I think it was Sea Point, and found this girl, and we found him, and we confiscated about $168,000 from him and arrested him.
But just when you thought that it was all over and that justice was served, 3 years into their sentence, the Jones brothers escaped from holding cells at the Windhoek Magistrates Court.
At some point they went to the Windhoek Lower Court. And while they were appearing in the Windhoek Lower Court, they escaped. I think they escaped through the toilets, climbing through the window, and they were off. So they informed us that these guys escaped. So immediately the whole serious crime were now deployed and looking for them. They then committed another armed robbery. They robbed a female person of a vehicle. And now we had a description of the vehicle, but we didn't know what direction they were taking. So we circulated them, and there was a wake-up policeman in Windhoek at that point in time. And during the night, he visited the service station as you're driving out of Windhoek, direction South Africa, Gruno. At that service station, he drove in there and he saw this vehicle, and they saw him, and they jumped into the vehicle, realizing that this is the police. And now they sped in the wrong direction. Instead of taking the route to Gruno, which would have probably been a better option, they took the Seaheim road. So now we had them running off in the direction of Seaheim and Ais. And we started mobilizing. First of all, these two brothers were at a disadvantage because they only had plukkies on, and they had a bottle of Coke, which they bought at that particular service station. So they were into this river without water, just a cool drink, and without proper shoes. So the South African police came to the table, and they actually made a helicopter available from Pretoria that flew to the border post. They also provided two advanced tracking specialists from the South African Police Task Force. These guys are experts in tracking, so in advanced tracking. So we had a briefing the next morning. That helicopter took off from Noordoever. I was on board. Some of the trackers, the task force trackers, were on board, and we started flying up to where the Fish River meets the Orange River. Then we turned up into the river and we started flying it. And I remember clearly that I think we made one turn into the river, and then we saw the trackers saw that there were some tracks below. We wanted to look at them, and we landed and dropped him and said, okay, we'll come back for you. And we got up again, and the second turn that we made into the river, we saw the Namibian police guys standing there. They had reached these two guys. They arrested them. They were sitting on the ground. So then the Jones brothers were again arrested. They were very tired. The only thing they asked me at that stage is, "We need a smoke. Please give us a smoke." They just wanted to smoke. So then they were back in custody, and then subsequently this case went to trial.
Both brothers were convicted of murder, kidnapping, housebreaking with intent to rob, robbery with aggravating circumstances, and leaving Namibia without a valid passport. The total value of stolen property exceeded 900,000. The state argued that each brother should receive 95 years in prison. But even in custody, the risk was not over. When the case went to trial, the evidence was extensive. But inside the courtroom, the case took an unexpected turn. One of the accused, Chris Jones, introduced a new version of events. He claimed he had not acted alone. This is where the plot really thickens. Everyone's gaze shifted from the Jones brothers to someone else. According to his defense, Chris alleged that he had been involved in an affair with Gero Schwam's wife, and that she had instructed him on how the crime should be carried out. The claim went further. He alleged she had provided information, access, and direction. If true, it would have changed the entire case. But when Katja Schwam took the stand, her response was calm and consistent. That is not true. Again and again, she denied the allegations. The court was left to consider two versions: a calculated robbery and murder, or a conspiracy involving the victim's own wife.
I remember that was one of the things. Also, that she was behind the whole thing, which was not the case. But yes, I can remember that there was allegations of that sort.
Crimes like this are not only about violence, they're about decisions. Decisions made in moments that change lives permanently. And long after the case is closed, the absence remains.